Hello and welcome to the second episode of the What Shara Made podcast. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back and I hope you enjoyed the first episode. And if you're a new viewer, thank you for tuning in and I hope you enjoy what you see. After my first episode last week, I was so pleased to have all the beautiful messages on Ravelry and Instagram and Facebook. It was so nice. I wasn't expecting it at all, and people have joined the Ravelry group and subscribed to the YouTube channel and all sorts of lovely things like that. So thank you very much if you're one of them, particularly Sandra from the Craftfulness podcast. You really encouraged me. I felt a little bit nervous and you made me feel much better, so thank you very much. And if you haven't watched Sandra's podcast, you can find it on YouTube under Craftfulness, and she's also Sandra's Craftfulness on Instagram, and I'll link to that in the show notes so that you can enjoy her podcast as well. Now, I have got a lot of stuff to talk about today, so I should probably get into it. Regarding whips, if you saw last week's episode, you would have seen my lacy baseball tee that I was knitting in the green cotton linen blend yarn. Well, after knitting almost halfway up the body, and I was thinking, wow, I'm making great progress with this, I decided it was just miles too big, and I'd already actually gone down a size. I'd already started it previously and pulled it out and gone down a size, and it was still too big. And I think even if I knit the smaller size, it's still going to be too big. So I might have to do a little bit more experimentation with that. I'm not sure what's going on with it because I did a gauge swatch before I began, and I was being very sensible, and I measured it and it matched the gauge and the pattern, so I thought I'll go with the size that the pattern indicates that I think should fit me, and the pattern also indicated that it had no ease, so not negative ease, not positive ease, just no ease. So the size of the garment should be the finished size. The size listed in the pattern should be the finished size of the garment. But it's definitely not. It's definitely got a lot of positive ease. So even though my gauge matched, it was going to have approximately 5 inches of positive ease, and that's quite a bit. And it's very drapey because it's a cotton linen blend, and I think I felt like it was just going to look like a bit of a sack on me instead of a nice somewhat fitted t-shirt, which is the look I was after. And I had planned on wearing it to a Christmas party this weekend if I got it finished. Obviously I didn't get it finished because I unravelled it, but the weather forecast is for that day to be above 40 degrees, so Celsius. That's above 100 degrees in Fahrenheit, and there's no way I was going to be wearing any sort of knitted top or anything knitted on a day that's going to be that hot. I'm really not looking forward to it. I don't love the hot weather. It's already quite hot today and I'm not loving it. I've actually got a fan on in the background and I hope you can't hear it, but if I didn't have that on I probably wouldn't be filming. It's really hot in here. So I can't show you any progress on the lacy baseball tee because it no longer exists. It's just yarn at this stage. I will start it again though because I really wanted it. It's really beautiful, and the fabric that was knitting up in the cotton linen yarn is really gorgeous as well, so I will start it again, just not right now. And the sailor tee, the striped t-shirt that I talked about last week in my whips, I haven't done any on it. I haven't done even half a stripe, nothing. Oh well. And the madrigal socks I was knitting in the Felici, the stripy socks, I haven't knitted any on those, nothing. They've just been sitting in their little project bag, waiting patiently. And the hand-spun socks that I was knitting, I haven't done anything on those either, not a stitch. So what have I been doing, I hear you ask? Well, I've been doing a lot of secret Christmas knitting, so I can't really show you a lot of that because I don't want to spoil any surprises, but I have finished a few things, which I'll show you in finished objects later. But I have got a whip that I didn't show you last week because it's part of a mystery knit along, and I didn't want to spoil the surprise for anybody or the mystery, but the final clue in the mystery knit along has been out for several weeks now, so I think it's okay to show you. I haven't finished mine yet, I'm still in progress, and it's the Doodler by Stephen West. So if you're still working on that and you don't want the mystery to be spoiled, you might like to look away just now. Alright, here it is. It's a little difficult to show it because it is still on a needle, but you get the idea, I think. Yes. So, it's quite large. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying the colours that I've chosen, and I'm really pleased that I chose these colours. I did have a little mishap in the first clue with colour A, which is this colour here. Like many people, I ran out of my colour A before I had finished the colour A clue, and it was a yarn that I had hand dyed myself, so I thought, well, I can attempt to dye another little bit to match, and I wasn't successful. I knew how much I needed to finish I just had the last wedge to go, and I knew how much I needed, so I did that plus a little more, and I dyed it, and it came out way too dark. So, and I was already halfway through the last wedge when I ran out of yarn, and I just started with my newly dyed yarn to finish the last wedge. And it was a really dramatic shift in the two colours in the last wedge, so I thought I'll undo the last wedge and I'll just knit the whole last wedge in the darker colour, because this last line here might help to distract from the slight colour change, which it did. It looks fine, no one else would notice except me, or if I pointed it out. So that was good, except that I ran out of my newly dyed yarn about 11 stitches from the end of the last wedge. But I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't stretch it out. I just couldn't do anything, so I had to finish the last tiny bit of the last wedge with the original colour A yarn. And then I realised what I really should have done, because I think you can probably, it's really not showing up in this light, which is good because it's obviously not that dramatic a shift in colour. This is the darker wedge. What I should have actually done is knit one row in the lighter colour and one row in the darker colour, and just alternated skeins, and that would have been totally fine and I would have had more than enough, but I didn't think of that until I was already done, so never mind. And that is clue 2, this cable along the edge. Not sure how well that's showing up in this light. and clue 3 in the navy, in the very dark colour. It's a bit hard to see, I think. So colour A, as I said, is a yarn that I have dyed myself. Sort of get a better view of it there. It's a pale grey with the burnt orange and navy speckles in it. And colour B, this beautiful colour, is a Volmizer fingering weight yarn. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's in my project notes. And this, the navy blue, is also a Volmizer of the same type as the colour B. And I've got plenty of both of those colours, so I've no fear of running out of either of them. And I really like the way those 3 colours have worked together. It's really nice. They don't really match anything in my wardrobe, but it doesn't matter. I kind of just wear any colour with any colour and just go for it. I love it. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm actually going to have a lot of these 2 colours left over, so I'll have to think of something interesting to do with those. And I think I've already got a project in mind, but I'll show you in the next episode what I plan on doing with those leftovers. And that is actually it for whips. Everything else is a finished object or a new acquisition. This top that I'm wearing is actually a finished object with sewing. Obviously it's not knitted. With this really cool Mustang fabric from the cotton and steel range of fabrics. You can't really see it, but it's got some metallic gold on it as well, which is pretty cool. And this is just a pattern. It's very basic. It's almost 2 squares sewn together with holes for the arms and the head and the waist, with a little bit of very subtle shaping in it so that it fits slightly better than a sack. And I really love it. I've got a few tops that I've made using this same pattern, which is just something that I've made up. It's not an actual pattern, and it's a really great way to use just a small amount of fabric. So it takes roughly about 1 metre of fabric or a yard of fabric, and often if I in a fabric store and I see a really gorgeous fabric but I've got no idea what I'm going to make with it, I'll get a metre of it and think of something for it later. And so a lot of those random metres of yarn, of fabric, have been turned into these tops. And in winter I can wear them under a cardigan, and you know, they do just as well as in summer where I wear them alone. So it's quite a versatile top, and I think I'll probably be making more of these in the future. Something else that I've been sewing a few of recently is project bags, and I've got a Christmas function coming up on the weekend, and it's mostly my knitting friends, so I have made some Christmas presents to give to them, and they all include a project bag, and they're all the same because I didn't want anyone to be upset that they got a different one or they prefer the one that someone else got. So they're all getting the same thing, and they all look like this. It's a floral chambray cotton, the neutral coloured strap, and my little tag on the side, and a zipper, and a shiny black lining. You probably can't see that that is shiny, but it is. And the reason I use the shiny lining in my bags is so that you can use them sort of like a yarn bowl. Just have your skein of yarn sitting in there, the bag sitting beside you, and you just knit from the bag. And if you have that slippery lining, the wool just comes out easily and doesn't sort of get snagged or caught up on anything in there, which I really like for myself. So that's how I make my project bags, and they're lined with a quite a heavy interfacing so that they stand up on their own and they're pretty sturdy. And that's the way I like to make my bags. And so that's one style that I do, and that's roughly a, call that a shawl size. Can easily fit a shawl in there, or socks or whatever you feel like putting in there, of course. And I made some others for people at a separate Christmas party, so everyone at each party is getting the same thing. And I really like these ones. I think I actually prefer the spots over the flowers, and the coloured zips rather than the black ones, and they're lined in the same way. I think they're going to be warmly received at the party. And I also made a slightly different style because my mum requested one, and this is the style that she likes. It's more of a bucket style, with a drawstring at the top, so you have that going on. And they're also lined with the same slippery lining and have the heavy interfacing so that they sit up like a bucket and you can use them like a yarn bowl. And they're my mum's favourite sport. And I also made one little one for me, but it's not really a project bag, it's more of a notions bag. And that is this one. I don't know how well the glitter is showing up on the screen, but it's fully glitter and it's fully fabulous. How cool is that? And I am using this one to hold all my little 9-inch circular needles that I use for sock knitting, and occasionally I use them for sleeve knitting as well. And I have quite a collection, and they're quite small so they're easy to lose, so I like to keep them all together in one place. And that is in my shiny glitter pouch. I really love glitter, so you'll get to know that. You better get to know me through the podcast that I love glitter, sparkles, stellina, everything shiny. Now, that is my sewing finished objects. How about some knitted and crocheted finished objects? Let me show you. Oh, something else that is going in those project bags for that present is everyone is getting a knitted bauble. Well, everyone at one of the parties is getting a knitted bauble, and the other ones, maybe they'll get them as well if I don't run out of time. Here is one. It's got little hearts on it, it's pretty sweet. And I just got all these patterns. They're free patterns online that I just found on Pinterest. And they're all vaguely similar with different patterning. And they're reindeers. Not my best knitting, but I think it's fine for a bauble. And sheep. I think this might be my favourite one. It's pretty cute, isn't it? Oh, and I've got one more, but I don't know where it is. It's like the best one. Excuse me, maybe it's... Oh, that's a shame. I guess I will... I'll probably come across that halfway through the podcast and then I'll show that to you as well. I don't know where it went. It's got a flower on it and it's really groovy. Anyway, actually before I move on to my finished objects, I do have a little thank you. I entered a yarn giveaway on Instagram and I won. And I was very excited because it's a particularly gorgeous yarn. How about that? Isn't it beautiful? Those colours are coming up pretty accurately. Although of course, just like all yarn, it's more beautiful in real life because you can smush it and touch it and feel it. And it is Yarn Ocean by Crafty Ree, and I'll put a link to her website in the show notes so you can have a look at all her other gorgeous yarns. They're really pretty. And she's in Tasmania in Australia, and it's a worsted weight yarn. It's a super wash wool. It's 100 grams, 220 yards, and it's called Speckles Summer. I really love it, so thank you so much, Crafty Ree. I really appreciate it, and I actually think I'm going to give this yarn to a friend for Christmas because I know she will really love it, possibly even more than me, which is a lot because I think it's absolutely fabulous. It's all my favourite colours all in one. Now on to finished objects. I do a fair bit of charity knitting and crochet, and I usually do smaller things like hats and gloves and baby garments, just so I can do more of them and spread the love a little more. And there's a particular group in Melbourne that I do charity knitting for every year, and they put a call out that they needed some newborn cardigans and sweaters, so I got busy. I've made this little one, which is pretty gorgeous, and that's using the free Tiger Hilliard pattern, which I believe is called Wee Speedy, and it's knit on using chunky yarn, and it is very speedy, as the name suggests, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. It literally took me maybe 2 or 3 hours from start to finish, so that's great. And it's really nice and soft and squishy. This is another little one that I've made. Let's put some little flowers and leaves on there. I didn't use a pattern as such for this. It's the sort of one that I've made up and I use quite frequently because it's really quick and easy as well. And it makes a really cute cardigan that's nice for everybody. The little blue one, same style, with some mother of pearl buttons, and a little green one with apple buttons. They're pretty cute, aren't they? And this one, which is once again another pattern from my head. Maybe I'll write them up and put them on Ravelry one day, but at the moment they're just ones that I make. I know the size that they need to be at to be suitable for a newborn to 3 months, so that's sort of how I go with it, and make a pattern for my head that I know is going to be suitable. And then I got given some, I got given 4 balls, 4 100-gram balls of worsted weight acrylic yarn in a neutral colour, and I just had no idea what I was going to do with it. I don't typically use acrylic yarns, I find them hard on my hands, and I don't like to wear acrylic yarn or any sort of synthetic fabrics really, so I tend not to use it. But I'd been given this yarn and I had no idea what I was going to use it for, and then the very next day this charity that I knit for and crochet for put out a call that they wanted baby blankets in neutral colours in acrylic yarn, and so that was the universe telling me exactly what I needed to do with the acrylic yarn that I had received, and this is what I made. Can't really see the whole thing because I'm too close, but you get the idea, it's all the same. And this is another free pattern for the motif that I found on Pinterest, and if I can find it again I'll link to it in the show notes because it's quite pretty, isn't it? And I think it looks really nice in that colour. So all of those little bits and pieces will be heading off to the charity in the mail tomorrow, and hopefully they'll help keep someone in need nice and warm. And I have another finished object that was a whip last week, and it's a finished object this week, so quite pleased because it is a Christmas present that needs to be mailed off tomorrow. So I'm happy that I finished it in time, and it's the purple hand-dyed socks, and it is showing up a lot brighter on the screen than they are in real life, so just have to tone it down in your imagination. And once again, I haven't used a pattern for these, just a pretty basic style we've got there with the Fish Lips Kiss heel. That is my favourite sort of heel. It's definitely my go-to heel, and it's the one I use for pretty much any socks I knit, either when I'm knitting top down or toe up. I will pretty much always use the Fish Lips Kiss heel unless there's some very significant reason why I shouldn't. And if you haven't tried the Fish Lips Kiss heel, I highly recommend it. It took me a little while to get my head around it at the beginning, but once I knit a pair of socks using it, I don't even have to refer to the pattern now, and it all just makes sense, and I can just go for it, which is good. Then I can just insert it into any sock pattern that I'm knitting. And it comes with very extensive instructions on how to do it, so it won't be too much of a challenge for you. Even if you're newish to sock knitting, I think it will be good. And it only costs $1 for the pattern, and you can then insert it to any of the sock patterns that you're knitting. My next finished object is also a Christmas present, and the reason I'm showing this Christmas present knitting on the podcast is because I know these people won't be watching the podcast because they're not podcast watchers, and I don't think they even know that I make a podcast, so it's fine to show it and I won't be spoiling any surprises. This hat here, I'll get a better view of the actual pattern of it. It's the Botanic hat by Stephen West, and it's a brilliant hat pattern. I have made so many of these. I made one for my brother for his birthday earlier in the year, and he loves it to death, and he has worn it so much that it's starting to look a bit ratty, and I think I might have to knit him another one for his next birthday. But this one, you can see it has these interesting vertical lines as well as the horizontal lines, and create that interesting crown patterning. It's also reversible. If you don't fancy that, you can wear it this way, and it's just some ribbing with some mini stripes. And this was knit using some hand-spun yarn, undyed obviously, that I got from the Bendigo Sheep and Wool show a few years ago, and I've been saving it, waiting for the right project to come along, and I think this is the right project. It looks really nice, and it smells beautiful as well, like lanolin, and the person that this hat is going to, I think, will appreciate that. So hopefully that's going to be good for him. It's a good hat for the men in your life. I often struggle to find patterns that are really good for men. Men seem to be a little bit apprehensive about wearing hand knits, and I wanted to find something that was not too plain, but if they don't fancy the patterning on this side, they can always do this side, which is a little more subtle. So that's good if your recipient's got a few options. And I've got another piece that I've made. Excuse me, it's really hot in here and I need a drink. Alright, I've got another finished object that I've done in some hand-spun yarn, and this has been made in my hand-spun yarn, and it was the first time I'd ever really spun anything deliberately thick. I tend to be quite a fine spinner, and I find it easier to spin finer yarn than I do to spin thicker yarn. I can spin thicker yarn, but it tends not to be particularly even. I need to work on that. But I deliberately tried to make this yarn thicker because I wanted roughly a worsted weight yarn, and I achieved it. It's still pretty bumpy and lumpy, but that's okay. I think it really adds into this piece because it's quite simple. But I've got this little top, I don't know if that's fitting in the screen, and it's coming up a little paler on the screen than it really is, but I don't know how to get that to show you. I really love this. I wish you could feel this because it is so soft and squishy. You would love it. And I love the colours and the way it's come up in odd little stripes. This is a pattern once again from my head. I haven't written it up yet. I don't know if I'll publish it, but it's also going to be a Christmas present for a little person. And I hope she likes it. I hope she actually gets some wear out of it because she's growing really quickly and she's in sizes bigger than her age, so I hope it fits her because she's gonna look so cute and squishy in this. So hopefully it still fits while the weather is a little cooler for her, because it's really thick and really warm. You probably couldn't get away with wearing it in summer at all. It's very much a winter knit. And the next finished piece that I have, two of them, the same thing, and they're from my latest pattern that I just released today, so it's live on Ravelry now, and it's called the Mossvale shawl. And I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this on the screen, but imagine that doubled. So it's a crescent shaped shawl and it's got little baubles on it and this knitted pom-pom edge, which is one of my favourite things to do. I seriously love it. I actually just want to knit pom-poms onto the edge of everything. I keep trying to think of ways that I can add it to all sorts of things. I've got to add it to some sort of garment because I need to wear pom-poms. I need to wear the pom-poms. So it's quite a large shawl. Its wingspan is bigger than my wingspan, so I can't even hold it up properly if I stretch it all the way out. Well, that's good because we want it to wrap around lots and lots. And I've knit this using Clay Keaton's Superfine Merino, which is a DK weight yarn, but it's actually quite a fine DK weight yarn. If you do the wraps per inch, it is more like a sport weight yarn, 5-ply. And it has the most gorgeous drape because it is so soft and springy. Like, you can see that bouncing around there. It is beautiful. So it's perfect. It's a perfect yarn to use for shawls and scarves and wraps, anything that you want to have a really good drape. This yarn works really well, and I will link to this in the show notes so that you can check out the yarn and the pattern. And it's a nice pattern because it's a really simple pattern repeat to remember, so it's a good one for knit night or watching TV or watching your favourite knitting podcasts, and you won't get too confused or forget what you're up to or have to concentrate too much on the pattern. So I like patterns like that. And I've also made a version in some hand-spun. I don't know how well that is going to show up because it's actually got sparkles in the hand-dyed, in the hand-spun yarn. It's really not showing up at all. Anyway, trust me, it's sparkly. And this fleece is the roving that I used to spin this was from, I've never actually heard anyone say this name out loud. I've only ever read it, so I have no idea how to pronounce it correctly, but Ixchel bunny. Anyway, I will link to it on my Ravelry project page so you know what I'm talking about. Hold on for one moment. Sorry, I thought I might have the label nearby, but I don't. It's the Viking Blend Roving, and it's fleece from sheep from all sorts of Scandinavian countries. There's Icelandic, I think something from Norway, and from the Faroe Islands. It's pretty amazing. I'm quite fascinated with anything, even vaguely Scandinavian, so it was a pretty easy choice for me. Now I have spun one of the singles in the Viking Blend from Ixchel, and then I plied it with a plain pink merino roving, which I've done the baubles in a solid of that, but I don't know if it's interesting or not. And the yarn is a little bit scratchy, I have to say. It's a bit more coarse than I'm used to, and I don't know whether it's the fleece or if it's the way I've spun it. It's fine for me because I actually really enjoy wearing yarn that I can feel, if you know what I mean. Like scratchy yarns don't bother me. I like the feeling of wearing wool and knowing that it's wool. But for regular folk, I think it might be too scratchy. Children would not wear this, although some little kids in my kids knitting class think this is fascinating and they like to parade around in it, so it can't be too scratchy if they like doing that. So that's the Mossvale shawl pattern, and you can find that on Ravelry. And I've got one final finished object, and this one I entered into a sort of local to me agricultural show, and they have it's like a county fair. They have a craft section, and the theme this year was owls, and I've never entered anything into a show before, or any sort of knitting competition that I can think of, but some friends were doing it, and I thought, yeah, alright, I'll join you, I'll do it. But I knew that if I didn't win anything, I know this is totally ridiculous, but I knew if I didn't win anything, I'd be really disappointed, and I might never enter anything into a show ever again. But I entered something in, and it won a ribbon, and I was very pleased. It wasn't first place, it was second place, and that's still good. But as Kanye West says, second place is just for the first person who loses. Anyway, I'll show you. I made this little cardigan. I really love it. It's adorable. The pattern is adorable. So obviously you can see the little owls in the cables on the yoke there, with their little glass beady eyes. And I've used the Wee Owligan cardigan, I think by Kate Davies. Apologies if that is incorrect, but I will link to it correctly in the show notes. I really enjoyed knitting it, actually. It's knit from the bottom up, and I was actually dreading getting to the owl cables because I was imagining it was going to be much more complicated and much more taxing than the rest of the cardigan, which is just stocking stitch. But when I got to it, it just breezed by. I barely even noticed that I was knitting cables, and the pattern's written so nicely and clearly that it was simple and it was really enjoyable, and I think I might knit some more in the future because it is so cute. also, that won a second place ribbon. Where's my ribbon? I have to put that up in the trophy cabinet, and you know, start a trophy cabinet. That is all for knitting. Over the weekend that's just been, it was my birthday, and I went out to lunch with all my favourite people at my favourite restaurant in my town. And I'm quite the regular at this restaurant, and the people that run it are just the best. They're so adorable. Like, the food is amazing, but they are equally as amazing, so that's great. And they knew it was my birthday, and they made a banner for me with my name on it and everything. It was really lovely, so that was a great way to spend my birthday. And my brother got me a cake for my birthday and had my name on it. It was absolutely beautiful, and I had some amazing handmade beeswax candles on the birthday cake that were made by a local woman, and they smell so delicious. I almost wanted to eat the candles as well as the cake, but I restrained myself. Now, two of the presents that I did get, I thought I would show you on here because they're particularly beautiful. I got this yarn from my brother's girlfriend, and she's gorgeous as well, and obviously knows me very well. And I don't know if you can see that on here, but this yarn is 50% baby llama and 50% lyocell. Once again, I've never ever heard anyone say that word before, so I could be mispronouncing it. Lyocell is a wood pulp, and it's made from the timber industry offcuts, if you byproducts. So instead of it going into landfill or just composting there, they've used the fibre to create a yarn, and it's so lovely and soft. Check out those colours. Oh, it's so nice. And it's a fingering weight yarn, and they're 50 grams each, with how many metres? Let me tell you, 175 metres each. So if you've got some ideas of what I could make with two colours, 175 metres each, so 350 metres of a fingering weight yarn, let me know in the Ravelry group. I'd love to know your ideas and suggestions for that. It's so beautiful and soft. I just, smush it, but I won't. And the other piece that I got, one of my oldest, dearest friends has been living in Central Australia, working with some Indigenous communities there for a few years now, and he came down, not especially for my birthday, but he just happened to come down to my state the day before my birthday, so he joined us for our beautiful lunch, and he gave me this amazing cushion cover, and the print on here is a painting by a local artist where he is living at the moment, in a place called Utopia in Central Australia, and the lady's name is Gloria Pachari, and the group that works with the local people and their art to produce these sorts of things, and they have all sorts of things that they make with the prints from the paintings and artwork by the local people. They make sure that all the money goes back to the artist and their communities, so It's a really great way for really clever creative people in Central Australia to make a living wage, and it's so beautiful. I'm so lucky. I feel really lucky with this gorgeous, gorgeous cushion. How amazing is it? Maybe if I put it that way, it sort of looks like a gorgeous bird's wing or something, doesn't it? I'm so happy with that. I'm a very lucky girl for my birthday. One more thing I wanted to mention. Each week I would love to tell you about a podcast that I love to watch, so that if it's unfamiliar to you, maybe you can go and enjoy it as well. I don't think I mentioned one specifically last week, so this week I'd like to mention the Yonder Woman podcast, which is hosted by the lovely Melinda, and it is one of my favourite podcasts. She is so nice, and I always feel great after I watch it, and I find her to be very inspirational. She's a really clever crafter, and she always has great things to talk about. It's a really enjoyable podcast, and she is in Perth in Western Australia, which is on the complete opposite side of the country to me. And I just want to say hello, Melinda. And if you haven't checked out her podcast, the Yonder Woman podcast, you definitely should do yourself a favour and check it out. And I'll link to it in the show notes so that you won't have any trouble finding it. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And I think I've actually covered everything that I wanted to cover this week. And I really look forward to chatting with you again throughout the week until the next episode. And do pop into the Ravelry group and say hello, introduce yourself, make contact on Instagram. I love seeing what everyone else is up to with their crafty pursuits, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope things aren't too hectic at your place leading up to Christmas or the end of the year in general. Thank you for joining me once again. Goodbye.